Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime and, departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time.
KM Munshi was the owner of almost infinite variety of talents. He was an excellent writer of Gujarati prose. He was an excellent administrator. He supervised the action against Hyderabad Nizam. He, as a lawyer, he stood among the first half a dozen or so. His most valuable gift to India was his revival, his very concrete effort at revival of the ancient Indian culture.
When I think of Sri Munshi, the whole new world opens before me, because he was not restricted, and his talents, his enthusiasm, his love for so many things led him into different aspects of human culture.
Munshi ji was a person who influenced the decision in the Constituent Assembly. He was working as a colleague to Dr. Ambedkar, and he was almost responsible for the framing of the Constitution.
He was a very independent-minded man. There were times when he could not agree even with Mahatma Gandhi. He never made a secret of it. And Mahatma Gandhi respected him because of his independent expression of thoughts.
Essentially, Munshi was a human being in the real sense. He had concern for others, particularly for those who were below him, who worked with him. Even for a servant, he had the affection as a member of the family.
When I wanted to get married to a non-Gujarati, he said, fine, that's your choice. And he did all to help us with that.
Mr. Munshi's great thing was, on one side, it was his outlook on, he had no parochialism whatever. He treated everybody alike, whether it was South Indian, Tamil, Gujarati or Punjabi, he treated everybody alike. I never felt that I was somebody outside the family that way.
When my sister wanted to become a sannyasini after her MA, he said, no, not now. You take your PhD and you do 5 years of lectureship. At the end of it, if you still want to be a sannyasin, I'll give you all permission, my blessings.
Speaking about his life, Munshi says, the whole of my life has been a steep climb, from a weak childhood to tolerably good health at 60, from an eating house costing 5 rupees a month to comparative luxury, from complete obscurity to some recognition, from inability to frame 2 sentences well, to 100 volumes in every branch of prose. But God has indeed been good. I have climbed, no doubt, strenuously, but laughing, playing, running. Sometimes I have stumbled, but on my way I have picked flowers, and every morning has brought me new joy. Bharuch, a port town in Gujarat state on the Gulf of Cambay. One of the well-known places of this town is Munshi no Tekru, which was where the famous Munshis of Bharuch once lived. Here, in a lane called Munshini Khadki, stands a house where Kanhaiya Lal, known as Kanu, was born at 12 noon on the 30th of December, 1887.
Krishna Govaniya Tuj vina denuma Kaun jaashe He jagne
Munshi belonged to an ancient Brahmin family, a family of lawyers, which strictly adhered to the traditions of learning and enlightenment. Munshi's father, Maniklal, however, deviated from the hereditary path. He served for a time as Diwan and later became deputy collector in the British Raj. Both Maniklal and Munshi's mother, Tapiben, were endowed with noteworthy literary abilities, which their son, Kanhaiya Lal, was to inherit in plenty. Munshi bore a deep affection for his father. He also owed much to his mother, Tapiben. Talking about his mother, Munshi says,
My mother, throughout her life, was an unwearied writer. She wrote notes, accounts, inventories, advices, poems, Puranic episodes, philosophic thoughts, and even in that age, an autobiography.
She fed her little son with tales of the great deeds performed by the heroic figures in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. This instilled in him a deep and abiding admiration for the greatness and the glory of his motherland. In accordance with the custom of those days, Munshi was married rather early, at the age of 13 years, to Ati Lakshmi in the year 1900. Munshi studied in a local high school in Bharuch, the R.S. Dalal High School, from where he matriculated in 1901. He was then sent to Baroda College for his degree course. It was here that Munshi came under the spell of Aurobindo Ghosh, who was his professor of English. The influence of Sri Aurobindo remained with Munshi for a long time to come. Munshi had also a deep admiration for Shivaji, founder of the Maratha Empire, and a great fighter and patriot. In 1906, Munshi obtained his BA degree and won the Elliott Memorial Prize of Baroda College. In 1910, he passed the final LLB examination and qualified for the legal profession. Munshi's interest in politics had begun in 1903, when he was in the first year of his college career. In 1907, Munshi attended the Surat Congress, enthusiastically serving as a volunteer in the camp of the so-called extremists. This was his first exposure to Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, and Lala Lajpat Rai. On the 22nd of July, 1910, Munshi went to Bombay to receive his law degree and make his career there. He had no resources of his own, nor cousins to maintain him. The Bombay bar of that time looked like a heavily guarded fortress. Men of great legal ability and acumen like Sir Chimanlal Setalwad, M.R. Jaikar, Bhulabai Desai, and many others manned its battlements, making it difficult for outsiders to storm them with success. Initially, Munshi lacked the required self-confidence and sophistication. But he decided to make every effort to succeed. He took his initial training with a well-known firm of attorneys, Messrs. Matubhai Jamiatram and Madan. In February 1913, Munshi appeared for the difficult advocate's examination and was declared successful in the following month. Later in June, Bhulabhai Desai took him as his junior. Addressing Munshi, he said, "If you will be useful to me, I will likewise be useful to you." Munshi soon proved that he was a match for Bhulabhai, and the relationship developed into a lifelong friendship. Dr. L.M. Singhvi, an eminent jurist who worked at one time as Mr. Munshi's junior, recalls his experience.
As a lawyer, there was nothing that he touched and did not make look quite different. He took to Hindu law and he made a contribution which was unique. He was a great civil lawyer, he was a great tax lawyer, he was a great constitutional lawyer, he was a great criminal lawyer, he was a great cross-examiner. And it's remarkable that one man achieved it all in so many different fields. He had a mastery of facts, a style of advocacy which was very persuasive. And when he told his story, it had the ring of the truth. When he presented a case, it had a persuasiveness all its own. When he expounded a point of law, it seemed as if it is from the statute book or the textbook itself.
By the 1930s, there was no branch of law which Munshi had not studied in depth. He also made a penetrating study of the ancient Hindu sacred texts to attain mastery in Hindu law. Munshi practiced law for over 40 years and appeared in a large number of cases involving the most varied points of law. Munshi was also fascinated by Mrs. Annie Besant's dynamism and enthusiasm for Indian independence. On September 25, 1915, she had started the Home Rule League and made it a countrywide organization. Along with a number of other intellectuals, Munshi had joined the League and had worked tirelessly to carry its message in Bombay and to many parts of Gujarat. He had started a weekly paper, Young India, and edited it along with Jamnadas Dwarkadas. After Gandhi was admitted in the Home Rule League, he drastically amended the aims and objects of the League. Many influential members like M.R. Jaikar, M.A. Jinnah, Jamnadas Dwarkadas, Jamnadas Mehta, and Mangaldas Pakwasa refused to endorse the changes and resigned in protest. Among them was also KM Munshi. While making a career at the bar, Munshi never thought that one day he was also destined to emerge as a luminous star in the firmament of Gujarati literature. In 1911, he had become secretary of the Gurjar Sabha and had won the Students' Brotherhood Motiwala Prize for his article, Theory and Practice of Social Service. From his college days, Munshi had been a diligent student of European literature. Alexander Dumas, Victor Hugo, Walter Scott, Goethe, P.B. Shelley, Bernard Shaw, and H.G. Wells were his literary godfathers. In 1912, Munshi's first story, Mari Kamla, was published in a Gujarati magazine called Stree Bodh. He wrote it under the pen name of Ghansham. Leading literary critics of that time applauded his maiden effort. In the following year, 1913, he wrote a social novel, Verni Vasulat, Revenge Accomplished. It was serialized in the weekly Gujarat and brought him a remuneration of 20 rupees a month. The character of the heroine, Tanman, won the hearts of all Gujarati readers, and the novel became an instant success. In 1916, Munshi wrote a historical novel, Patanni Prabhuta, Greatness of Patan, followed in 1917 by Gujarat No Nath, Lord of Gujarat. This was a part of a trilogy that showed the greatness of Gujarat and its rulers. In 1922, Munshi wrote Rajadhiraj, the King of Kings, to complete the trilogy. In 1920, Munshi had published Prithvi Vallabh, which had transported him to the pinnacle of prosperity. The novel was translated into English, Hindi, Marathi, Kannada, Bengali and Sanskrit. Besides being staged, it was also made into a film by Sohrab Modi.
मंत्री महाशय, कहाँ है वो दुनिया में हलचल मचा देने वाले महाकाल के सशक्तिवान पांव, जिन्हें धोकर पृथ्वी वल्लभ अपना जन्म सफल करे?
अवंती राज, हारा हुआ राजा सदा से जीते हुए राजा के पांव धोता आया है। ये हमारे देश की पुरानी रीत है।
फिल्मराज, ये आप क्या कह रहे हैं? क्या मैं और पांव धोऊं, और वो भी उस कार के जिसके हाथ मेरे पांव धो धो कर जीवन भर के लिए गीले हो चुके हैं?
गुस्ताखी न कर, तेरा जीवन मेरे हाथ में है।
मूर्खता न कर, मेरा जीवन भगवान के हाथ में है, और जब तक वो नहीं चाहता तब तक तू, तेरी सेना, तेरी जीत, किसी में हिम्मत नहीं कि मेरा बाल भी बांका कर सके।
तो तू मेरे पांव नहीं धोएगा?
दुश्मन के पांव धोकर 100 साल जीने से ये लाख दर्जे अच्छा है कि आदमी अभिमान का एक क्षण जिए और उसके बाद हमेशा के लिए आंखें बंद कर ले।
Principal Yashwant Shukla.
Munshi has written historical fiction, social fiction, mythological fiction, and in all this his narrative skill is surpassed only by his characterization and action. So characters give rise to action and action interpret the characters. This way something of fiction, something of history and something of narration, all these things combine and make a novel that Munshi has graced Gujarat with.
Among Munshi's early social novels was Kono Vank, Whose Fault, published in 1915 as a protest against the evils of forced widowhood, early marriage of girls and caste cruelties. Then there was Swapna Drishta, 1924, a record of his own reactions to the political happenings in India since the beginning of the first decade of this century. In 1940, Munshi wrote another historical novel, Jai Somnath. It is the story of the attack on the great temple of Somnath by Muhammad of Ghazni in January 1025 AD. In the novel, Munshi paints a shining picture of the heroic defense of the temple by the then King of Gujarat and his soldiers. Munshi had done a good deal of research on the Somnath temple. For several centuries, it was a celebrated seat of learning, where Shaivite teachers of national reputation taught. Munshi therefore made all efforts to see that the government of India took positive steps to renovate the temple. Munshi was one of the founder trustees and played a great part in preparing the trust deed of the temple. He also took great interest in its reconstruction. Munshi wanted the temple to become a great center of learning, particularly in Sanskrit, with the capacity to attract students and scholars from all parts of the country. On the 11th of May, 1951, the then President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, performed the opening ceremony of the new temple. On this occasion, Munshi convened an international conference of Sanskrit to mark the inauguration of Sanskrit Vishwa Parishad. The Somnath temple stands today as a witness to the untiring efforts of Munshi in initiating the process of its reconstruction. Munshi believed that Indian culture is not merely Aryan culture, but very much more. He said, "We cannot repudiate the Gandhara art because of Greek influence. We cannot disown the Taj Mahal because of its Islamic inspiration. We cannot reject the art, the manners, the institutions which Hindu-Muslim adjustments have given birth to. We cannot even throw off the Western influence and institutions which have grown into our life." Munshi therefore undertook the stupendous task of getting the history and culture of the Indian people written by India's own historians, so that the world might catch a glimpse of India's soul as Indians see it. In 1957-58, Munshi published a 3-volume novel called Tapaswini, The Lady Sage. It is a detailed description of the social and political evolution of Gujarat since the Great Revolt of 1857. Another of his momentous creations was Krishna Avatar, the incarnation of Lord Krishna. This great work in 8 parts brings alive the life and message of Lord Krishna. Munshi was a prolific writer. Apart from novels, dramas and short stories, his literary output includes historical biography, his travels abroad, literary criticism, and scholarly essays on a wide variety of subjects. In the post-independence period, covering 24 years, his major writing was non-fictional, related to biography, politics, history, and culture. Out of Munshi's anguish during the campaign for India's partition arose in 1942 the book Akhand Hindustan. In 1957, he wrote The End of an Era, a record of his experiences in Hyderabad soon after independence. The last major contribution of Munshi to Indian political literature consists of the 2 volumes of Pilgrimage to Freedom, embodying Indian constitutional documents from 1902 to 1950, known as the Munshi Papers. Munshi was also an accomplished journalist. For about a decade, he had edited the weekly journal, The Social Welfare, and its successor, The New Democrat. In 1936, Munshi had started Hans Limited, which took over the Hindi magazine Hans, and he became its joint editor with the Hindi writer Prem Chand. Later on, even after Munshi left him, Prem Chand continued to keep the name and was known as Munshi Prem Chand. Later, he discussed a wide variety of subjects in a homely style through his features Kulapati's Letter, published in the BHAVAN'S journal, a fortnightly organ of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. In looking back at the life of Munshi, one cannot but remember the contribution of Leelavati, his second wife, in inspiring him to climb the ladder of success. Leelavati was a widow. After the death in 1924 of Atilakshmi, Munshi's first wife, Kanhaiyalal and Leelavati decided to get married. Munshi took the consent of his mother, Tapi Ben, and got married in 1926. Meanwhile, at the Nagpur Congress session in 1920, Gandhiji had introduced amendments in the Constitution of the Congress, outlining its new goals. Munshi, along with 20 other members, disagreed with the amendments passed and resigned from the Congress. In August 1926, Munshi was elected to the syndicate of Bombay University. Vice-Chancellor Sir Chimanlal Setalvad invited him to take active interest in the activities of the university. In 1927, in response to Sir Chimanlal's suggestion, Munshi contested the university seat in the Bombay Legislative Council. Munshi won the election and took his seat in the Bombay Legislative Council in 1927. Meanwhile, in Bardoli Taluka of Gujarat, the government had jacked up land revenue assessment by 22%. even though there was no noticeable increase in the production of crops. There was widespread resentment among the people. The government retaliated with severe repressive measures. Standing crop, land, and even buffaloes were seized and auctioned at a nominal price. In response to the request from the farmers, Sardar Patel took up the leadership of the Bardoli agitation. About this, Munshi said,
"It was a great experience for me when I saw Sardar leading the 80,000 Bardoli peasants into a grim struggle of limitless courage."
On the 16th of June 1928, Munshi visited Bardoli. He was much perturbed. After a series of discussions with various leaders, a committee was formed called the Munshi Committee, with Munshi as chairman and 6 other members to study and examine the grievances of the farmers. Munshi met the farmers and was convinced about their demands. He also found that popular support was complete and spontaneous. The impressions which he conveyed to the governor had a strong impact on informed opinion. The Bardoli episode drew Munshi closer to Gandhiji. He resigned from the Bombay Legislative Council in 1929. 12th of March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi embarked on the historic march from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi Sea Beach in defiance of the SALT Act. On the 14th of April 1930, Munshi rejoined the Congress. Offering his services to Gandhiji, Munshi said, "When the whole of Gujarat, and with it India, has started on a glorious march to martyrdom, I, who dreamt of their greatness through my literary efforts, cannot stand by and look on." He participated in the Salt Satyagraha. He was sent to Yerawada Central Prison in Pune and sentenced to 6 months imprisonment and a fine of 300 rupees for participation. Meanwhile, the British government invited the Indian leaders to a roundtable conference in London. At the second roundtable conference, a federal structure committee was set up to examine the feasibility of framing a federal constitution for India. Munshi prepared a note making a critical assessment of the system and submitted it to Mahatma Gandhi. During 1931, Munshi was elected member of the Bombay Pradesh Congress Committee and later of the All India Congress Committee. Meanwhile, Gandhiji launched the civil disobedience movement against the ordinances promulgated by the Viceroy, which were a breach of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Munshi participated in the movement and was sentenced to 2 years rigorous imprisonment in Bijapur prison in Karnataka. In 1936-37, the Congress participated in the elections and showed an outstanding performance. In the Bombay Assembly, the Congress led with 87 members. Munshi won the election as a Congress member to the Bombay Legislative Assembly. He was later appointed Home Minister in the first Congress government in Bombay State. During his tenure, his gifts as an able and resourceful administrator were brought into full play. The manner in which he handled the communal situation at that time won him a lot of praise and appreciation. It was after the outbreak of the Second World War in September 1939 that the Congress ministries resigned the following month. Meanwhile, the freedom movement was in full swing all over the country. Munshi was arrested for offering individual satyagraha in 1940. He was imprisoned in the Yerawada jail in Pune. However, in 1941, he was released because of severe illness. Since 1923, Munshi had consistently been thinking of giving an institutional foundation to his ideas and ideals. He had remained associated with social welfare activities and was involved with many educational institutions and trusts. In 1939, Munshi, along with Sardar Patel, had started the Institute of Agriculture called Krishi Go Vidya Bhavan at Anand. It was popularly known as Khetiwadi. Sardar Patel was the chairman, and Munshi was the vice chairman of this institute. After the death of Sardar Patel in 1950, Munshi took over the chairmanship of the institute. Earlier, in 1937, Munshi had been legal advisor to two Marwadi clients, Mansuklal Sheth and Mungalal Goenka. Both of them told Munshi that they desired to donate an amount of 9 lakh rupees and 6 lakh rupees towards the cause of farmers and cows, respectively. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Munshi initiated action and, with the concurrence of the then government of Bombay, started the MC School of Agriculture for training the young sons of the farmers at Anand. He also started the Sheth Mungalal Goenka Institute of Animal Genetics and Nutrition. The foundation stone of this institute was laid by the then President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, on the 16th of October 1950. He also took the initiative to improve the milk yield ability of Kankraj cattle, and a herd of 55 cows was established in 1941-42. Munshi took great interest in the activities of the institute. On the 31st of January 1952, he performed the opening of Bansilal Amritlal College of Agriculture and enhanced the activities in the development of the institute. It is, in fact, the foresight and vision of both Sardar Patel and KM Munshi that has led the Institute of Agriculture in Anand today to become one of the leading agricultural institutions of our country. But his long-cherished dream of founding a cultural institution became a reality when the foundation of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan was laid on November 7th, 1938.
I had an occasion when I was Chief Minister of Bhopal of traveling with him long distances from Bhopal to Sanchi and back. I could see in that period, we discussed many things, but throughout he was full with the idea of the Indian culture, its depth and width both. That is the wider view that Indian culture took. And all the time he was keen, so far as our education is concerned, he was worried about the newer generation. They should all be imbued with the Indian culture, and in that context he was also very keen that Sanskrit should be, the education in Sanskrit should be imparted to as many people as possible, because he believed that in order to appreciate the Indian culture, Indian roots, Sanskrit knowledge will be of great value.
Well, the institution would not have been founded but for Munshiji. That is his importance. He had the idea, and I provided him with the land which he required, because it was a very good idea. And the culture of India is being propagated through this institution for the last many years, which is a great contribution to the Indian development also. Munshiji was wedded to it, and he was also
a genius for this purpose. I don't think another person would have been able to do this.
The opening ceremony of the building of the Bhavan in Bombay was performed by the then Governor General of India, C. Rajagopalachari, on the 8th of August, 1949. On the occasion of the establishment of the Bhavan, Munshi had said, "For many years, it has been the dream of the Sahitya Sansad to crystallize its work by creating a center in which the ancient learning and modern intellectual aspirations of this land could combine to create a new literature, a new history, and a new culture." The Bhavan will be the new association where modern Indian culture will be provided with a historical background. P.V. Narasimha Rao.
I was one of the earliest workers in the movement of the Bhavan. Munshi ji was so happy with me, so affectionate to me. He treated me like his son. He gave me great inspiration. And when there is a combination of affection and inspiration, a very rare combination, then what else do you need? You do get affection but not inspiration from the same quarter. You get inspiration, but sometimes you may get a harsh word or two from some other quarter. But here, Munshi ji combined both.
The Bhavan's main center in Bombay today is a beehive of activity. It has a well-stocked library with over 100,000 books. Munshi had said that this is one of the best Indological libraries in the country. Ramakrishnan, who has been associated with Munshi and with the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan right from its inception, shares his experiences.
Munshi ji was primarily a Renaissance man. He considered himself as a small seashell thrown up by the mighty modern Indian Renaissance, starting with Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was the morning star, and Sri Ramakrishna, who was the dawn, and Mahatma Gandhi, who was the noon of modern Indian Renaissance. He considers Indian culture to be everlasting and eternal, all-embracing. He felt unless modern technological advancements are properly integrated with ancient values and vice versa, no nation will have a bright future. It is with this end in view he started the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan 10 years before the advent of freedom. Munshi ji felt that all aspects of life should be covered by the activities of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Education. He provided a framework for giving education from the kindergarten classes up to the highest in all aspects of life. Classical music, classical Sanskrit, dance, drama, music, research, life and health sciences, journalism, advertisement. He left no aspect of life, modern or ancient, uncovered by the activities of the Bhavan. He wanted to create what is known as complete man or Purna Purusha.
Today, the activities of the Bhavan have spread to many parts of India and abroad. It now has more than 60 branches in India and other countries, including in London and New York.
He started this Bhavan for the purpose of influencing the English-educated section of the people so that they might get exposed to our Indian culture and the great Indian heritage. That is why you will find he started the publication division particularly for the purpose of bringing about the cultural books, spiritual books, educational, etc. And now it has grown as a great institution. And that was mainly because he gave a constitution to the Bharati Vidya Bhavan and also an organizational structure.
Munshiji's tapasya is bearing fruit, is proved by the fact that several distinguished men and women in all walks of life, in India and abroad, without any distinction of caste, creed or political ideologies, are associated with the Bhavan. The basic essence of it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the ideal of one world. And in that connection, Munshiji started in 1964-65 what is known as the Bhavan International. Its first overseas center of the Bhavan was started in London in 1971, in 6 months of the passing away of Munshiji. With that has been associated some of the best minds of Great Britain. The first patron-in-chief in London was Lord Louis Mountbatten. On his demise, his nephew, His Royal Highness Prince Charles, accepted the position with great cheer and happiness. Lord Fenner Brockway, who was a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi, he is also our patron in UK. So are Lord Harold Macmillan, Lord Fenner Brockway, Yehudi Menuhin and many others. In America, we have Mr. Robert McNamara as our patron, John Kenneth Galbraith, Mr. Orwell Freeman and many others. Subsequently, we started a center 3 years ago in Toronto. Our latest venture was in Lisbon, Portugal, where people from different faiths, particularly Muslims who had been settled down in Mozambique and who have gone over to Portugal, have also joined in large numbers. We are now planning to start centers in Geneva, Berlin and Sydney.
On the midnight of 14th August 1947, India became an independent nation. The first Constituent Assembly met in the atmosphere of free India. Munshi was one of the most active members of the Constituent Assembly. On the 10th of July 1946, Nehru had invited Munshi to join the expert committee appointed for framing a suitable constitution for the government of free India. Munshi worked very hard in preparing the first draft. He advocated secularism, believed in religious tolerance, and in the oneness of all great faiths. He fought for a united India and an integrated judiciary. He was one of the chief architects of the Constitution of Free India.
Dr. Munshi was responsible for the retention of judicial review in our Constitution. He was responsible for the seeds of due process in our Constitution, in spite of the advice given by some American constitutional experts. He was responsible for the language formula in our Constitution. He was responsible for shaping and formulating many controversial provisions. Both Dr. Munshi and Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer were the great resources of the drafting committee. Whenever a legal problem came, whenever a political problem arose, everyone would turn to Dr. Munshi and Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer.
Towards the end of December 1947, Sardar Patel, then India's Deputy Prime Minister, surprised Munshi by saying that Munshi should go to Hyderabad as India's representative. The appointment of Munshi as India's Agent General in Hyderabad was announced on the 25th of December 1947. On September 13th, 1948, the Indian Army was ordered to march into Hyderabad under the command of Major General J.N. Chaudhary. On September 17th, the Hyderabad Army had surrendered. It was a victory for the Indian forces. The entire operation was over in 108 hours. The Indian Army was accorded a tumultuous reception by the local population.
We toured together in the area where Kisans were being harassed and troubled and even killed also on a large scale by the Razakars. Munshi was advised not to go with me, but he braved the wrath of the Nizams, and Razakars toured with me and put courage and faith into the hearts of our Kisans.
The Nizam was in a state of collapse. He invited Munshi to meet him. Munshi suggested to him that he should go on All India Radio and announce the surrender of his state to India. The Nizam agreed and acknowledged the help Munshi had rendered on the occasion. Munshi's mission to Hyderabad was now over. Sardar Patel specially commended the high sense of public duty shown by Munshi in accepting this assignment. But the strain and tension seriously affected Munshi's health. His temperature rose to 104 degrees, and a special plane was arranged to bring him to Bombay. In February 1950, the Prime Minister called upon Munshi to take over the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in the Union Cabinet. As Minister of Food, Munshi inspired officials of his ministry with a sense of mission. He wanted controls to be removed. For this, he felt it was necessary to have higher production of food grains. He appealed to all the states to give top priority to food production. He reorganized the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. He told the research officers all over the country that in a period of grave food crisis, extension work was far more important than fundamental research. Munshi went abroad and met agricultural experts in many countries. He also discussed the feasibility of setting up a land development corporation in our country. In India, he encouraged the formation of a land army, or Bhumi Sena, which was meant to help the Grow More Food campaign. Inaugurated by the then President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, in a village near Delhi in 1951, this movement resulted in Shramdan, or free gift of manual labor for public causes, and attained much popularity at that time. It was during this period that Munshi started the Vana Mahotsav, which encouraged mass planting of trees. Munshi also organized a conference of ministers of agriculture of various states, which decided to hold Vana Mahotsav on a countrywide basis every year in the first week of July. This event has now become an annual festival in the country. His heart bled at the sight of more and more trees falling to the axe of land-hungry man. Munshi popularized the planting of trees because he strongly felt it was essential for maintaining the ecological balance in the country. To wean the people from depending heavily on cereals, he tried to popularize the consumption of subsidiary foods. In this undertaking, he was ably assisted by his wife, Lilavati Munshi. Both suggested that one day in a week should be observed as non-cereal day. Munshi held charge of the Union Ministry of Food and Agriculture from February 1950 to May 1952. But even in this brief period, Munshi's measures paved the way for the green revolution to come and the attainment of self-sufficiency in food. It was in the first week of May 1952 that the Prime Minister called Munshi and offered him the governorship of Uttar Pradesh. Munshi was sworn in as governor at the Darbar Hall of Raj Bhavan in Lucknow in June 1952. Munshi expressed his happiness at being in the state. He said, "Though not born in Uttar Pradesh, I have lived here apart from temporary visits in imagination, study and sentiment for a very long time." During his period in office, Munshi toured the state extensively. He discussed problems with the local population and gained first-hand knowledge of their wants and wishes. He drew up detailed notes on the basis of the impressions gained by him and sent them to the ministers concerned. His good offices in bringing the people closer to the cabinet won a lot of appreciation for him. As Chancellor, Munshi gave a good deal of his time and attention to the affairs of the universities in the state. He strove hard to transform the universities within his jurisdiction into temples of learning. He said, "I am a staunch believer in the autonomy of a university. I believe that in the field of learning, men should be free to pursue their own line of thought or to express their own opinions, so long as they are on an academic level." He also held chancellor camps, where teachers and students were invited to stay in the government house as his guests for a couple of weeks at a time. This experiment proved popular and helped curb students' violence. K.C. Pant, who was a student at that time, gives his impressions of the Chancellor's camp.
When the invitation to attend the Chancellor's camp came to me, I was not at all sure about what the camp would be like. But I went, and it was very rewarding in every sense of the term. There was some amount of physical activity, leveling of earth, planting of trees, and things of that kind. There was a certain amount of social work. Then there were lectures, there were discussions, and above all there was a daily discourse on the Gita by Munshiji. But this Chancellor's camp gave us an opportunity of meeting some of the most outstanding academic figures of our time from the different universities in UP. I think it was a very, very useful innovation. And I would certainly strongly recommend the revival of these camps, not only in UP but all over the country.
Vidyanam narasya roopamadhikam prachanna guptam dhanam.
Munshi gave Sanskrit a pride of place in his heart. He wrote to lovers of Sanskrit in India and abroad as to how best its study could be advanced. Munshi was also an ardent advocate of Hindi as India's national language.
In many important decisions, he played a very crucial role, particularly in the adoption of the language formula. There were two stages. One, whether it should be Hindi or Hindustani. Panditji was insistent that Hindustani should be the language as it was advocated by Mahatma Gandhi, But the traditionalists represented by Tandon, Pushapdas Tandon, they wanted Hindi with the Sanskrit background. And it was the persuasive power of Munshi which made the Congress party accept Hindi as the language. And that is how we have in the constitution now Hindi with English as a subsidiary official language.
In 1957, Munshi laid down the governorship of Uttar Pradesh. Meanwhile, Munshi had started drifting away from the Congress ideology. In 1959, Munshi resigned from the Congress and joined the Swatantra Party, founded by C. Rajagopalachari. Later, he was elected vice president of the party. The life of Kanhaiyalal Munshi was indeed a steep climb. He was much more than a lawyer, politician, or minister. He was a gifted writer, but more than anything else, he was a great human being who believed in secularism and coexistence. In the later years of his life, Munshi's health started deteriorating. On October 21st, 1961, he left instructions with S. Ramakrishnan, Executive Secretary of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, to be followed in the event of his death. He said, "I should be consigned to the flames among Vedic chants. In view of the inconvenience that will be caused to those surviving me, I will not mind being cremated in the electric crematorium. But in no event should the hollow formality of funeral speeches be observed." It was in the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, where Munshi stayed in later years, that the end came on the 8th of February 1971. At 6 p.m., the sad news was broken to all. I am not the mind, the intellect, the ego. I am not the senses. I am neither the sky, the earth, the fire, nor the air. I am bliss absolute. I am Shiva. I am Shiva.
Sada